Okay, so sitting down with Randy Martin. He is the owner of Covenant Coffee,
CEO,
founder. Awesome,
Yep.
awesome. He was kind enough to take some time out of his day and sit down with us here on Trials and Triumphs. And so I figured we'd just do a short intro, have you introduce yourself and a little bit about the organization.
Great. Well, Randy Martin, Bakersfield native, and love my hometown. Married, wife Kim is also a co-founder here at Covenant Community Services, a nonprofit 501c3 that we launched in 2003. Covenant Coffee came a little bit later in around 2008. We've done a lot of things in our life together. So I have 2 kids and 4 grandkids, and tons of fun. And we serve foster youth here at Covenant. Our tagline mission is providing hope and love to foster youth for restoration of their lives and transformation of generations. So everything we're about is housing, case management, mentoring, behavioral health services, employment, vocational skills, you name it, financial literacy, life skills, just all the things that folks that grow up in a stable family would probably get from their parents and aunts and uncles, grandma, grandpa, that foster youth just get kind of left behind with. So that's brief little bit about me. I'm a certified John Maxwell leader trainer coach.
Saw that.
Got my master's from Cal State in administration during COVID. Got COVID masters. That was a lot of fun. Played soccer at Cal State, and this past weekend had 1,000 cyclists go through my home as part of the Rock Cobbler. So that's a little bit about me.
Okay. I was going to mention I did a century ride a while back, quite a while back. I don't know if that's at all similar to what these guys were doing.
Similar, it depends on your century, but this was about 8,500 feet of climbing, 85, 87 miles, pretty brutal. Hike-a-bikes, tons of shenanigans, tons of grueling, pitchy hikes, mud. So yeah, tons of fun. Okay. A little bit different.
Yeah, completely different than what I was doing. Well, good. Appreciate you sharing that. So, Randy, if you were to go back to the beginning, what's kind of one thing that you wish you would have known that you kind of learned, to this point that you wish you could have implemented back in the beginning?
Yeah, we are pretty much an organic type of entity, and my leadership style is somewhat organic in that you kind of jump in the pool and figure out how to swim kind of deal.
Sure.
So I think I would tame some of that. I would tame some of that, just try to figure it out and go seek some folks that have maybe done it before. Unfortunately, the stuff we were doing, nobody was doing. So I didn't really have a model or someone to go check out. And that was whether we were working with developmentally disabled adults way back at Bakersfield ARC or working with youth and foster children. There really wasn't a model. So, but I will say that I would have attached myself, as we eventually did, to great mentors and leaders that can show you the way and give some course correction. Also give you hope because they've been through it. So I would have done that more. I would have reached out more.
So over the years, what would you say has been maybe one of the biggest obstacles? I know you mentioned not having that model, and feel free to use that one as well, but what would you say is maybe one of your biggest obstacles you've had to overcome?
Finances are always a challenge. So I think that learning how to be lean with your finances and your resources. What we talk about is time, talent, treasure. How you pull people in, whether they're a volunteer, whether they're a paid staff member, whether they're an ally, a donor, prayer partner, whatever it is that you're focusing on. That those are the areas that we chase down. And I think that the great obstacles are just sometimes when you don't seem to have enough to do that thing that is going to move the needle forward. Mm-hmm. And how to figure that out is probably the biggest challenge, just whether it's simply what we've done. We don't throw banquets. We're going to throw our first 20-year banquet this year. We don't do tons of fundraising. We don't have this massive donor list. And so, but tapping people on the shoulder and asking them to get engaged
Mm-hmm.
in that organic manner, but then also following up to make sure that you're closing that loop on someone, just like you would in business. I know you do a lot of things around financial stuff. It'd be one thing just to call somebody, email them, and then never to call them back.
Right.
And I think that when you get busy doing the work so much, you kind of forget that you got to put some gas in the tank.
Sure.
Right? You're just too busy driving and seeing the sights, and all of a sudden, you're clunking on the side of the road.
Right.
So the obstacles, not just the finances and lack thereof, because everybody's facing that.
Right.
In any entrepreneurship or any business, education, police departments, firefighters. I mean, everybody's
You name it.
facing a budget crisis and finances, but it's how do you work around that? I think one of the ways that we would get around that obstacle is to look ahead, keep one eye down the road to say, okay, we've got to get some gas. And
Right.
we got to bring some finances on so we can be around in the next 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so we can have a reserve. Instead of just working, it's that old saying, work on your business, not
Right.
just in your business. And
Right.
so I think that's one of the obstacles. It's not that there's a lack of finances, but how do you go about having a consistent framework to say we need to get some more resources on board? For us, that's also just talking to people, because you never know who that next donor is, that next business partner is, that next prayer partner is, that next person that's going to come up and say, hey, I'd like to do this. And so that's important.
Absolutely. So, Randy, if someone were going to follow in your footsteps and sort of pursue a similar path, what's maybe some key advice that you would give to them?
Great question. I think that no matter what someone's doing, when they're trying to go out and be a world changer or try to do something that's going to impact their community, impact their family, impact their future, I think research is huge. You have to learn about what's going on before you just jump in. And I know that goes against the organic model, but what I'm saying is that figure out who's doing what. Like, so when we started coffee, we figured out who was doing coffee. I'd already done coffee in Kern County, so I knew what was happening, but I wanted to figure out what was going on in the nation.
Right.
Because there might be something that's going on somewhere else that we can bring here.
Sure.
Or what are the big topics around foster care? What are the current issues? Is it psychotropic medication? Is it over medication? Is it court appointments? Is it problems with family visits? So getting all that research out of the way, so when you go into that meeting or when you go into that presentation, you're looking for that contract, or you're looking to start your business, or you're looking to start that lawnmower company, or whatever it is you're doing. You're getting as much research as you can. So you know what you're getting into. You know how deep the water is, you know how wide it is, you know exactly what's happening. And I feel that so many people don't do that. They just have an idea one night and they wake up the next morning and say, I'm going to do this.
Right.
Without ever going, okay, who should I talk to? And then when you talk to those people, say, who are 3 people I should talk to?
Right.
Right? And then go learn from them. And say, hey, here's what I'm doing. And when we first did that, man, when we call coffee shops, people, well, you can hire me as a consultant. I'm like, okay, well, thank you. And if I had some money, I would, but is there anything you can tell me for free today?
Right.
And so business, when you're going to competing business, is a little bit different.
Sure.
But when you're getting into some of the things we do with nonprofits and people serving and that kind of stuff, everybody always wants to talk to you about, hey, Derek, what are your 10 things that you love to remind people, just to encourage them and help them with their day as you finish your education piece on finances? And you're like, oh, dude, I'll tell you all about that.
Right.
Because it doesn't have anything to do with what your business model is, but has everything to do with your business model and how you're encouraging people. And
Sure.
so you love to give that away. So that's it. I research so much and learn so much, and that's kind of a common theme that we're talking about, but I really think it's important.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think and getting out of the Google box.
Yeah.
Because there's some information that you need to get, but just like I'm sure you've experienced along the way, it's totally different when you have an opportunity to sit down with somebody face to face, glean from some of their experiences.
Yeah,
and pass them
you
down.
bet.
Yeah. Cool. So since you've started, can you kind of identify, maybe name if you want to, 1 or 2 key people that have helped you get to this point?
Sure. So I got into foster care and serving foster children through raising my hand at a church service to go to be a counselor at the first camp for foster kids in Kern County. And what I soon came to know as the first camp for foster kids in the nation. And that was Royal Family Kids Camp. And this was in 1995. And I went to that camp and had no idea what a foster kid was. I had one friend that was adopted in grade school. Had no idea about the horrific stats around child abuse and neglect and what happens in every neighborhood in America that goes reported or unreported. And through that camping experience, I became part of the national leadership team, and now I'm a national trainer with my wife, raising up other camps, and we've raised up 35 camps around the nation and world through that process. But the one thing that I saw inside of that model was something that went beyond the organic structure and then talked about we need a real structure. If we're going to if the vision is a camp in every county to reach the most amount of kids possible, then we have to recruit people to do that. So who's really good at that? McDonald's. So you look at their franchise model. And so we took this franchise model and brought it into the camping world, and then just made sure that we protected kids and went above and beyond whatever child welfare agency was saying, went above and beyond best practices, and actually launched new best practices in the world of child welfare. So now there's 350 camps around the world and the nation, Royal Family Kids Camp, and the founder of that was Wayne Tesh. And he mentored me from the very beginning. And I'll never forget in the first classroom I was with him, when we were going to become the directors in 1997 of this kids camp in Kern County through Canyon Hills, that they gave our prior director a manual, giant manual about how to do camp, 10-month planning cycle, all this stuff. Well, that lady was a cheerleader personality, very bubbly, very energetic, great recruiter, but took that manual and chucked it out the window on I-5. So I go to this training, and I'm with my wife there, and he keeps giving us these tips, and I'm like raising my hand and asking questions. Well, what do you mean you do this, this, and this? What do you mean you do this, this? And he's just said, can I talk to you guys after class? No more questions. And he goes, it's almost as if you've never even read the manual. I go, manual? There's a manual?
What manual?
And he goes, are you kidding me? I go, no. He goes, oh, that's right. He goes, well, next presentation we're going to do, you're going to figure out about colors and personalities, whether it's the Labrador or the otter or the red, blue, and greens. And he goes, you followed a cheerleader who was, a very yellow personality, and your wife's a blue like mine. She's an organizer, and you're more of a red, cheerleader guy that's power and red, and so you're going to learn about that, but read the manual. Actually, I'll talk to your wife about making sure you read the manual. So we got the manual, but Wayne was inspiring. And the other thing Wayne did was not just go after the result, but worked a lot on the means to get there. So would put on a quarterly leadership luncheon, and then annually we would do a leadership banquet. I mean, I'm talking about some of the best leaders in the world would come and speak to us, and man, you're just getting nuggets all the time. So Wayne was one of the greatest mentors that did that for me. The other person would be my dad, and my dad was just because being an educator, sacrificing his life and tons of success he could have had he not wanted to be a football coach and administrator and a high school principal at the district, and do horseshoe programs for prisoners in Laredo. But just his compassion and his mercy was very driving. Because I should probably be dead either by his own hands or by some other. His mercy was a beautiful thing.
Sure.
So those guys, and there's a lot of people. I could. That's a long list, but because I followed my own advice, I went and talked to people.
Yeah.
And so, and when you find that person and you're in the same orbit, they're more than willing to jump in. And now, the scripts are kind of getting flipped in the sense that I'm calling my old mentors and encouraging them,
right?
Because we're all getting older.
Sure.
And so now their time in that spotlight's ending, and people can kind of forget about them. And so I just like to call and say, man, thank you, thank you for any success that I may have is success that you brought on board,
right?
And that's just a cool thing. So I'm trying to do it for full circle.
Absolutely. So, what would you say? What are you reading right now, or listening to that is inspiring you? You know, on a daily basis, just to keep getting up, putting one foot in front of it.
Well, I read my Bible quite a bit, and that inspires me to. You know, today I was just reading about whatever is good, whatever's noble, whatever's right, whatever's true. You know, think about those things, and so it's so easy to wake up and hear about an earthquake and a war in Ukraine and a budget and this person doing this and this person doing that and a school shooting and man, it would be so easy to just be a negative Nancy. Sorry for any of the Nancys out there. Negative person and just have a woe is me attitude. But just that one verse that I read always brings me some course correction. And then, you know, I have a stack of books that I'm going through. One is Understanding the Woman's Brain, which is a very, very interesting book. I like a lot of books. I like a lot of stuff about neuroscience, and I think that there's so much going on now in the study of neurology and neurospirituality and just, you know, people have learned so much about you can teach an old dog new tricks, and so trying to figure out the best use of my brain, how to keep it healthy, but also how to encourage others for brain health. That's been challenging, but I would go back to the Bible always, and then I'll always pick up, you know, a weird book just to get out of my own head, whether it's a good spy thing or, you know, the last one I was reading was A Hitchhiker's Guide Through the Galaxy, just for some funky joy, but you know, not afraid to read just about anything.
Sure. No, those are good ones.
Then of course all the Maxwell stuff, the leadership stuff. But that's, you know, I can do that for so long before I need to get a brain shift going somewhere else.
So, and I've listened to quite a bit of John Maxwell over the years. How did that come about? What kind of prompted you to want to get involved with that? And have you had the opportunity to meet him?
Yeah, multiple times. So when I was pastoring, you know, we'd go to pastor conferences. He was a pastor before he did all the leadership training, so I met him then, and then just decided to kind of invest in some coaching for our foster youth to better prepare myself with some of the lessons I knew that he provided that impacted me, and then in turn how I could push that down the line. So we use most of it. I use most of it personally and for our team here, but also for foster youth to encourage them and help them launch out in whatever career they're doing. So I think that the Maxwell journey was really just an evolution of staying interested and the constant reminder to always learn, because you know that process of you're not leading if you're not learning, and so always having something in front of you that you can go, oh, there's an aha moment. And so I became a Maxwell leader coach. I did that I think around 2012, 2014, yeah, probably 2014. And it's just been inspiring because some of the other guys on his team were wonderful, and of course I met him there, and we got to hang out. So yeah, just all around great person, and again very influential. And I can pick up a book at any time and just flip open the page and just get a nugget.
Sure.
And then the back end of the website around the mentoring on his university is just amazing. I mean, some of the you know, you can be on a workout and listen to it or watch something, and all the way from back in the old school days when it was cassettes.
Right.
You know, I don't have a cassette player anymore, but
Tough to play those probably nowadays. So Randy, if you could come up with maybe one or two myths, maybe it could be about nonprofits, it could be maybe just around some of the work that you do with the foster youth. What's maybe one or two myths that you'd like to debunk?
yeah. So good question. I think one of the myths about nonprofits is everybody's on the take. You know, I think the only rich nonprofit is the NFL, and the NHL, and the MLB, and the NBA, and anything that's like that makes a gazillion, and NC2A.
Sure.
And people that make tons and tons of money. But most of the time, nonprofits are ran by people that just had an idea to do something in their community, usually on their street, their block, their city, their county. and just to make a difference, something that tugged at their heart, like for me, going to a kids camp, and there's no ulterior motive. But so many people have this notion, especially if you're a faith-based nonprofit, because then not only do you get the nonprofit side, but then you get the preacher on TV, it's going to send you an Ark of the Covenant, some oil, and a hanky if you give $1,000 today.
Right.
If you don't, the wheels on your truck are going to fall off or something like that. But so there, those myths are huge.
Yeah.
The other myth, I think, is everybody wants to be involved.
Mm-hmm.
So people don't care. I mean, that's a flat-out fact of the matter.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to be okay with that.
Yeah.
A friend of mine said, "Don't make your ministry another man's burden."
Mm.
And I think that's a huge deal for people to understand, is that just because it's on your heart doesn't mean it's going to be on everybody's heart.
Right.
Because people are facing different things. So that woman that started sending care packages to warriors overseas, just to give them a taste of home, right? And how that developed in this thriving thing, or the Wounded Heroes, or so many CASA. Somebody had an idea to do something. But the fact that not everybody's going to be involved in it, not everybody's going to want to give, pray, or go, but you just keep trotting down that path. So I think one of this is that everybody's going to be involved. 2, it's going to be easy. 3, you're not going to get any persecution or attack or whatever, because whatever you're trying to do, somebody else is very much against it. And if you're a person of faith and you're trying to do something that's going to change generations, restore lives, and give people hope, then you're going to also have an anti-side of that that's going to come after you. So I think the myth is it's going to be easy. And so for me, the way you get around those myths is to saddle up with people and say, hey, would you be an accountability partner? Would you be a hope partner? Would you be a source of encouragement? Not a yes man or yes woman, but somebody that's going to look you in the eye when you get squirrely, but also encourage you when they see you down. Because those days that are hard, man, it is tough. I mean, we have kids pass from suicide. It's just one of the worst days of your life when you're trying to help someone. That's few and far between, but it's still an awful time.
Right.
So I think those are the big myths that I would debunk, is that not every nonprofit's out to take your money. But be careful and do your research.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And so now that you've had a chance to experience some of the Maxwell leadership material and implement it in what you do, in a short phrase, how would you define leadership?
That's a great question right there, my friend. In a short phrase. A short phrase, I would say, to model, mentor, and monitor for another person's success.
Pretty darn good.
I think if you make it about your success, then that's not leadership.
Excellent. Say it again, model.
Model, mentor, and monitor. So show them the way, watch them do it, and then follow up and make sure they're doing it well. No sloppy agape.
Right. So, Randy, if you were me and we were sitting on opposite sides of the table, what's maybe a question that you would ask that I haven't?
How much money do you need from me today? No. You've asked a lot of great questions, and I think that is the number one thing perhaps I've taken away from my Maxwell journey, was good leaders ask great questions. And so as long as you're curious, I think that's one of the things that you can always ask someone to get them to talk about themselves. What are you curious about? What are you into right now?
Yeah.
Because that drives a whole different part of the conversation. Because it may not be what I'm into right now that I'm sharing with you. It could be about something else. And there's 1,000 things in my life. There's little periods of time that I've been very into something, and so I'll go get certified in a lot of stuff. Bareboat charter or whatever. So. When I did palm trees at my house, learning about palm trees like I was a nursery guy. But whatever you're into, is what I think people will drive their question to get deeper at heart questions, deeper leadership issues. You've done a great job, so I don't think you've done anything. If I said anything, I say, what are you doing right now? What are you curious about?
Excellent, excellent. So I always like to kind of throw one in there, sort of off the cuff, and so if you could choose a superpower, what would that be?
That's good. Well, I have 4 grandkids, so we have this discussion a lot.
Okay.
And I think what I landed on was flying. Yeah.
Excellent.
My 5-year-old grandson wanted to be invisible, which I wasn't sure about, but I thought that was pretty cool for a little bit. I think the whole reading people's mind thing would be a little creepy.
Yeah.
We've done that with that movie with Mel Gibson, and that didn't work out.
Right.
I don't know. There's a lot of good ones, and then there's the sinister ones. One of my middle grandchildren wants to be the guy that can throw fire. I'm like, well, that's useful, like camping.
Sure.
That's about it. There's not too many good uses for throwing fire.
Right.
But yeah.
We're usually trying to put those out.
What was yours?
So if I had one, it would be able to teleport.
Yeah.
So maybe not necessarily fly.
Gotcha.
But if I think of a place.
Yeah. Now when that comes across my mind every time is at the end of a vacation.
Right.
Because you don't want to go home.
Yeah.
But you don't want to do the travel home.
Right.
You just you want to get there. I think teleport would be good. But flying's kind of like it.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
So over the years, maybe it's through Covenant, maybe it was by other means. Who would you say is maybe one of the more famous, maybe recognizable, other than John Maxwell, people that you've come across or had the opportunity to meet?
That's a pretty good list. I've met more soccer players than I can name, just from being in the game, playing the game, and going to events. Quite a few musicians. I would think that probably the most impactful, though, that I'd probably hang out with would be the bass player for the Grateful Dead's wife, Phil Lesh's wife. My son was dressed as Tigger, and we got to hang out talking to her for a little bit about how crazy that journey's been, and then she took my son away from me for about 2 hours and went backstage, and that was kind of troublesome as well, but it was a pretty interesting moment. But hearing a wife's perspective of a Grateful Dead band member was a little different. And so that was fun. But I met a lot of great people in Bakersfield. I got a chance to meet Buck and hang out with him for a bit.
Okay.
Athletes, you see a lot, but I think soccer players, too many authors, a lot of musicians, folks of that nature, business owners. So
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Awesome.
But that was probably the most interesting. And it was all because my son was dressed up as Tigger.
That's good. And so finally, Randy, where people wanted to reach out, follow you, maybe just sit down, have a conversation with you, how can people find you and reach out to you?
Well, always come by the coffee house here at 1700 North Chester. We have a website, covenantcoffee.org, where they can reach out, leave a comment, try some coffee, buy some coffee, help foster youth. CovenantCS.net is our website around Covenant Community Services. And my email is randy@covenantcs.net. And they can reach out there, and social media, LinkedIn. See the interesting stuff, go to Instagram, or our Covenant Coffee stuff's always posting up where we're going to be with the Pink Lady or mobile unit or whatever we got going on that week.
Awesome. Well, really appreciate you taking the time to sit down with us today.
Appreciate you. Thanks for all you're doing.
Sure.